Thank you for tuning into this 2016 General Election Candidate Forum for Thurston County Commissioner District 2. The forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and TCTV. The League is a nonprofit organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in their government. The League neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties. We are nonpartisan. The League registers new voters, studies issues, and advocates for its positions with the legislature. Despite its name, the League is open to both men and women of voting age. I'm Karen Tweep from the League, and I'll be moderating this forum. The candidates for County Commissioner District 2 are Gary Edwards and Kelsey Holtz. For this forum, the candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then I'll ask them questions in alternating order. The first person ask a question will have 2 minutes for a response, followed by a 1-minute response from the other candidate. There will be a 1-minute closing statement at the end. We'll begin with opening statements from the candidates, beginning with Gary Edwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Because this is such an important race, I want to make sure I get some points across, and I want to use some notes. Is that okay, Karen? I'm Gary Edwards. I'm running for County Commissioner, and I would like to tell you why and a little bit about my family. We need less partisan politics and more common sense in the courthouse. That's why I'm running as no party affiliation and your only nonpartisan independent candidate for position 2. My family has lived in Thurston County for 7 generations, and this should be the best place to live and work for all our friends and family. Unfortunately, there have been some poor decisions made at the courthouse. Although probably well-meaning, they have cost us millions of dollars and have stalled the economic engine in Thurston County. We can do better for our citizens, businesses, and generations to come. Starting my public service in the Army, I then worked 37 years in law enforcement, the last 20 as your elected sheriff. I will bring leadership, integrity, and fairness to the Commission. We can protect the environment and revitalize the economy. By listening and working together, we can make good decisions, creating a strong economic climate which provides opportunities for all. People are our most important resource, and my job will be to ensure that you are protected and supported. I am honored to serve you, and I ask for your support and your vote. Thank you.
Kelsey?
Certainly, I'd like to thank the League for inviting us here today. This is such an important, it is an important race, as Gary has said, and this is an important process, and so we're really pleased to be a part of it. My name is Kelsey Holtz. I am running for Thurston County Commissioner in District 2. I am a proud resident of unincorporated Thurston County. I am a nonprofit fundraiser. I currently work for the Evergreen State College. I was their development director before stepping back to run my campaign. Prior to that, I led the $3.5 million capital campaign for the Thurston County Food Bank, which expanded that organization's capacity to serve our community. I'm very proud to be endorsed by the mayors of Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater, as well as about half of the city councils of each of those areas and numerous other elected officials and community leaders. I'm running because I believe that we can create sustainable economic growth in our unincorporated areas. We can protect and preserve open lands and parks, and we can build a social service network that doesn't leave anybody behind. And I think that we can build that in a way that is transparent, is responsive to the needs of our residents, and is inclusive of all who live in our community. I've spent my career building up organizations that matter to Thurston County, and I have experience taking an idea from just a glimmer in someone's eye, often with no resources, and building it into something that matters for this community. So I'm very proud to be running for Thurston County Commissioner. I'm ready to take Thurston County into the next decade, and I'm asking for your support and your vote.
Thank you, candidates. The first question comes to you, Kelsey. It deals with growth. What do you see as the issues, and what would you do to address the challenges that go with the growth we're experiencing in Thurston County?
Certainly. I think the primary issue as it relates to growth is the growth itself. Planning for how we are going to maintain the quality of life that all of us in our community enjoy right now, making sure that we can deliver services to residents in a manner that is effective and also is efficient in terms of budgetary constraints, and thinking long-term about the type of community that we want to be, what our priorities are, what our values are, and making sure that our plans for the future really reflect those. The decisions that we're making right now will impact generations of Thurston County residents. So I want to make sure that we are looking toward the future with ambition and optimism, and that we are building a plan that works and is responsive to the needs of Thurston County residents.
Thank you. Gary?
Inevitably, we're going to grow. It's just bound to happen. It is happening. But we do need to have controlled growth. Nobody wants to have a blue tarp shack with septic running out on the ground next to their nice house. Everyone I know wants clean water and clean air. So I think those are paramount, that we prioritize those issues. But I also feel that along with growth, we can have economic development. Economic development will then pay for growth as time goes on. So we need to create jobs and make Thurston County the best place it can be. It's already a great place, but it can be better. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary, this question comes to you first. Law enforcement services of the county account for approximately 75 to 80% of the county budget. How do we assure that the rest of the county services aren't shortchanged?
Well, first of all, there are two budgets at the county level, and the first portion is current expense, then the non-current expense. The current expense budget is where that 70% comes from. That funds not just the law enforcement that we see on the street, but all the other activities that take place in law enforcement. The jail, the courts, the clerk, so many others. Again, we can handle that if we have an adequate economic engine running in Thurston County, creating jobs, paying taxes. We do not have to create more taxes. We just have to get that economic engine going and increase our tax base. So that's where all the revenue source would come from, is creating the tax base so we could provide the services for everyone that needs those services.
Kelsey?
Certainly. As we look at the cost of law enforcement and related services into the future, I think we need to be considering what can we do to leverage technology to make sure that we're policing as smart as possible. Thurston County isn't going to get any smaller or any easier to police and protect. How can we encourage collaboration and communication between different jurisdictions to make sure that we're providing overlapping services that, again, provide the type and the level of service that our residents expect? And how do we make sure that in the long run, we're looking at where we can both leverage technology and also improve some of the systems that we have around diversionary courts and restorative justice programs to make sure that we reduce the cost over time of those systems to be able to meet the other needs of our community in a way that's efficient and responsive.
Okay, thank you. So the next question comes to you, Kelsey. Do you favor the pursuit of a charter government for Thurston County? Why or why not?
That's a very interesting question, and I appreciate you asking it. I at this point neither favor or don't favor a charter government. I think that that is something that at this point ought to be left up to the voters of Thurston County. I'm very much open to that discussion and to exploring what the long-term implications of that decision might be. I think that we need to take a hard look at where the budget for additional commissioners and additional staff would come from. I think we need to look at the limitations of physical space and where we would put people, and also how that would change the effectiveness or efficiency of county government. At the same time, I do think that it is certainly not ideal that 2 county commissioners, essentially as the majority, will control the decision making for over 200,000 Thurston County residents. So I think we need to be thinking long term and thinking what is the model, the format, the structure of government that is going to best work for our community to deliver the services that our residents expect. So that's a decision that I think should be left up to the voters at this point, but it's certainly a conversation that I look forward to having and look forward to engaging our residents to figure out the best path forward.
Gary?
I would say that the voters have already said twice, I believe, no on the charter process in past history. I am neither for nor against at this particular time, but I do think it's up to those voters to decide how they want to proceed. Once the population of the county reaches 300,000, there's one process that we could put in place. And then there's the charter form of government that we could put in through freeholders. So I think there's options that we could look at. I'm open to both of those options. And quite frankly, we have other forms of government that do it with 3, but there's a lot of things that come into play on this. So I think it's a pretty important topic, and I'm open to hearing all sides.
Thank you. So Gary, what steps should Thurston County take to begin dealing with the effects of climate change?
Well, I am not a climate change denier because I've lived here long enough that I can remember when Lawrence Lake, where I live, every year froze over. And before that, my grandparents cut ice off of Lawrence Lake and put it in sawdust houses for cooling. So I know it's there, I know it's reality, and I think we need to pay attention to it. But at what level Thurston County will really have an effect on the worldwide event, I'm not real sure of that. I'm open to looking into that to see if there's incremental small things that we could do that would solve or help solve that problem. We certainly cannot solve the problem, but we can be a leader in trending towards solving the problem. And I think things like electric heating, solar heating, and different mechanisms that could come into play are worth looking at. Now, I don't know if that's going to be an answer to solving the global issue. That's my concern, that we don't degrade our economic engine in the process so that we can say that, so we feel good solving this problem, when in reality we will not solve the problem, but we can be a leader in taking it in the right direction.
Kelsey?
Certainly. When it comes to climate change, I think there are 2 options on the table. We can either be part of the solution or we can be part of the problem. I think that the county in particular has a couple of roles to play in terms of the way that we prepare and plan for climate change and the implications thereof. The first being as the emergency management entity for our community and for our county. We need to make sure that we're making long-term plans, that we're making investments in the equipment, the training, and the facilities that we're going to need to be responsive to catastrophic effects of climate change. The second piece is really making sure that we are utilizing taxpayer dollars to make the best long-term investments that we can in county facilities and in county equipment to make sure that we are minimizing our impact on the ongoing concern around climate change, and also building resilient and sustainable structures and processes for the long term.
Thank you. Kelsey, this question comes to you. It deals with groundwater. So we don't know how many private wells we have in the county, and we don't know how much water they use. What actions would you take to preserve the county's groundwater resources?
That's a great question. Groundwater and water resources, of course, are one of the most important and critical things to any community. We haven't figured out a way to live without water yet, and so it's something that we need to take very seriously and be very proactive about making sure that we have the resources we need to meet the needs of our community over the long term. I live in unincorporated Thurston County. We live on a well, and it has become apparent that we do need to have a better idea of where wells are located, how deep they are, how much water they are drawing, so that we can plan for long-term implications both of climate change and of shifting weather patterns around droughts and things like that. Because we will see, as we're all drawing from essentially the same pool of groundwater, that we need to be thinking about how do we make sure that this resource is available to everyone who needs it in the future. And also thinking about how we protect the quality of that groundwater to make sure that we do have clean drinking water for everyone who needs it over the long term.
Gary?
There are quite a few different aquifers that feed the water countywide. And a lot of that depends on the snowpack, the amount of rain we get. There are a lot of things that come into play. I think we have the same amount of water on the planet today that we had 1,000 years ago. And I think we need to monitor it, keep track of it, but I don't think we should over-regulate. We don't want to get into a position where we're forcing people to do things they object to. But I do think we need to keep track of it. We need to know what those aquifers are feeding. And so there's some main things that we could keep track of that would help us make informed decisions.
Thank you. So Gary, this question comes to you. The City of Olympia has taken a number of steps to deal with the needs of the homeless. What do you see as the county's responsibility for dealing with this issue?
One thing that always surprises me about the homelessness problem is the Salvation Army always has empty beds. And that bothers me when we have people that are sleeping out in the elements and are not willing to conform to some of the rules that the Salvation Army has in place. So some of this is self-induced. Now, we also need to recognize that we have mental illness problems, we've got drug problems, and we need to deal with those as well. Councilman Neil McClanahan is probably the foremost homeless advocate I can refer to in Thurston County. And he's probably the one I would look to make a decision on how to better work with other jurisdictions and do a better job. But I really think there's a lot of issues that come into play. I'm kind of a believer in tough love when it comes to that. And I would like to work with those nonprofits that work in that area and do a better job to work together with all the agencies involved.
Kelsey?
Certainly. One thing that I have said frequently is that there are no problems facing Thurston County right now that will be able to be solved by one jurisdiction alone. So the county's role in solving the homelessness problem in our community, and we can solve it, is going to be in being a convener, being a collaborator, bringing together the different jurisdictions that will need to work together to be able to solve the problem, as well as bringing in the nonprofit service providers who are also on the ground working on this each and every day. There are communities around the country and around the world that are achieving net zero homelessness. And I think that we can be there too. We can look around, find the best practices that are being used around the community and around the world, bring those here to our community, and to really be aggressive in solving this problem, because it's something that affects all of us and it's a solvable issue.
Thank you. So Kelsey, what actions should the county take to deal with pollution in the Deschutes River?
That's a really great question. The actions that the county should take, one of the things that is paramount to any sort of effort to eliminate or to reduce groundwater pollution has got to be public information and public education. We have a wonderful community that is motivated and interested in making sure that our environment is clean and safe and protected. And so making sure that individuals understand the implications of the choices that they make, whether it be around taking care of your lawn or your landscaping, or the choices that we make around development and long-term ground disturbing activities. So I think that there's a great deal that we can do, and it's going to require, again, collaboration and communication between different jurisdictions, but really tackling non-point source groundwater contamination from a community-wide and a region-wide approach, and really honoring not just the environment and the damage that we're doing to the environment, but also to the rights of our tribal neighbors who rely on the Deschutes River and have for generations.
Gary?
I think probably the main thing that we can do is through education. But before we can even educate, we need to have proper facts. And I know today we don't know how many septic issues are out there, where the wells are. So gathering that information up is the first thing. Then I think we can get into education. Nobody that I know of, well, everybody that I know of is in favor of clean water. So as we proceed, we want to make sure that we're not putting lawn fertilizer, for an example, into the river. And I think that people will not do it if we'll give them the information. So it's about education and facts and working together with all those other jurisdictions.
Thank you. We're now at our last question, and this goes to you, Gary. And I think you've both touched on this in your responses, but good governance requires consideration of potential solutions as well as compromise. Tell us about a time in your political or professional life when you used those techniques to get to a win-win solution.
Some of you may be aware of what's known here locally as the Sex Offender Registration and Notification Program here in Thurston County, and now worldwide in all the English-speaking countries. That started right here in Thurston County. It started because we had some horrendous cases that were developed right here out of our offenders in our prison system that were then released. There was no way to keep track of those folks. By going out and getting the proper public support, we went to the legislature and had the laws changed, and through that change in legislation came the Sex Offender Notification and Registration Program. The staff at the Thurston County Sheriff's Office was the driving, and they were instrumental in getting that accomplished. So you take good staff, work with other jurisdictions, work with those folks that you know are very capable, take it the legislative route. One of the things I did run into was the partisan bickering that went on. Well, that was a good idea, but proposed by the wrong party. That's one of the reasons I am running as a nonpartisan individual in this particular race. I really think we need to make some changes at the courthouse. But through taking the lead, having the right staff, moving forward, we were able to save a lot of lives, I believe, throughout the world, throughout the United States. All the English-speaking countries in the world today have implemented this same program that we started in the early 90s.
Okay. Kelsey?
Certainly. When I worked with the Thurston County Food Bank, we were working again on a capital campaign, and one of the focuses of that campaign was to be able to store and distribute a lot more fresh food. And the reason that that was a focus of the campaign was due to a program that had been developed, and I won't take credit for this brilliant idea, but it was something that we worked hard on the community communication piece around it. But essentially reclaiming food that would otherwise end up in the landfill from restaurants and grocery stores, and finding ways to collect it in a way that is safe and collect it, store it, and redistribute it. So you're taking a product that was actually looked at as a waste product and turning it into a resource, which was a win for the folks that were served by the food bank. It was a win for the food bank itself because of the low cost of those foods, and it's a win for the community and the county.
Okay. Thank you. We're now at our 1-minute closing statements. Gary, we'll go to you first.
I would like to have everyone out there that's viewing this program to try to pay attention with what is going on in your community. Unfortunately, the news media that used to be the watchdog for the public has become the lapdog for special interest. So many things are not reported to you and happen without you really knowing about those things. There are a lot of things that went on here in Thurston County that I don't think were handled properly. That's what got me into this race. I would like people to know that I ran 5 times as a Republican, got elected in this county, so you have to know I work with others well. Ralph Monroe and Brad Owen are both supporting me, along with about 800 other folks. I would just ask that you go maybe to my website, talk to others. Why do I have that bipartisan support? Thank you.
Kelsey?
Thank you. Thurston County is a wonderful place. It's a wonderful place to live. It's a wonderful place to work. Other people are finding out about that and are coming to join us here. We need to be thinking about what is it about this community that we love, that we want to preserve into the long term? How do we look toward the future with ambition and optimism? How do we leverage new technology to make sure that we're delivering services as efficiently and effectively as possible? How are we building a local government that is accountable, that is transparent, and that is responsive to the needs of our residents? I think that we can do these things. We can build sustainable economic growth, we can protect and preserve our open spaces, and we can build a social service network that leaves no one behind. So I hope that you will consider visiting my website at kelseyhulst.com, and I ask again for your support and your vote so that we can move forward together.
Thank you. That concludes our forum with candidates for County Commissioner District 2. Thank you to our candidates for your participation, and to TCTV for producing this show. From TCTV and the League of Women Voters, we urge you to vote in the general election on November 8th. Thank you so much.